I'm gonna go back to each and every one of you because I'm pretty sure that after hearing the comments of the others, you have some other stuff to add. Adriana, Bob was mentioning a lot about the skills of the entrepreneur, and you're basically heading one of the largest entrepreneur networks in the world in Santanderex. What do you take from all the messaging about the people and the passion and the MTP and the focus that you think is going to make a difference now that we have that access to technology, as Peter was saying?
It's amazing. Even that you are an entrepreneur, that are coming out of emerging economy or based in a pretty well developed economy, you're gonna suffer or you're gonna face the same challenges. So being, international support and a very passionate entrepreneur, I think now we have shown, examples or being from a very, very not charming ecosystems and create a pretty disruptive technology as well in the market. So if you really find your real passion and you are ready, you have all these skills, the mindset, and you're ready to take it to the next level, definitely the opportunity and the momentum is now. So I do believe, as Salim was exposing, is the next decade for the Excel companies. But also, I agree with the rest of my fellows that mentioned that entrepreneurship is about solving the biggest and the most urgent problems. So now, with all the access of technology, allocation independency of demographic bonus, and all, being part of the digital economy in a global and well-connected world, we definitely have, the duty to take our passions and our capabilities and abilities to the next level and put it on the service of the rest of the actors of the ecosystem. So, understanding which role we are playing, you must be ready to play your role and take it to the next level, be sophisticated, we're ready, prepared, work like a team player and collaborate. I think those are the most pressure asset value. So entrepreneurship is not a trend, it's not something that it's good to have. And not only inspirational in development countries and a pretty rich people, it's about who is doing the right things for the majority. So who are solving the biggest problems, but also with working in collaborative way. If we put at the center, of our perspective, mindset, and business model, like an actors of ecosystem, and entrepreneurs, and every one of the rest of the organization, governments, knowledge, education, universities, the rest of the actors play our role in the game, we're gonna hit the goal to really have a very prosperous and human society in the upcoming years.
Bob, Adriana was mentioning a lot about ecosystem, and you've been, I mean, for many years now traveling the world. And the thing about the skills, I think, and we've had this discussion before, when you do not have them and you have to get trained somewhere or you need guidance from someone, it's challenging, especially if you're not from an advanced entrepreneurial ecosystem, because basically, and this is crucial, it doesn't really make that much sense to have someone guiding you that hasn't been there or hasn't done that yet, right?
And this is why I'm so focused on the glue, as I love to call it, creating networks of entrepreneurs, not so much for the EXOs where they're important, but operate at a much, much higher level. And I agree with what Salim and others have said about you start with the problem. The root of any success is a problem. But if your problem is feeding your children and paying the rent for the roof over their heads, you think about the world entirely differently and you look at entrepreneurship. And so I think we have to remember that part of our obligation to global society is to make sure that whatever entrepreneurial ecosystem we have can reach out to the very, call it basic, or sometimes called Main Street or mom and pop entrepreneur, and help them with some of the simplest things. I spent a lot of time with Elmore Logan, a truck driver in Bridgeport, Connecticut, with 2 children and a working wife who wanted to leave his truck driving job and start a trucking company. And he's ready to go out and borrow $100,000, which is probably 6 or 8 times his family asset base. I said, no, Elmore, can you take a month leave of absence? and rent a truck and sort of start going to the drop, sort of see how this goes and see how it works, and then lease one for a month. And right now he's in final discussions with a banker about buying his first truck. He would have done that entirely the wrong way without the advice that any one of us in this panel, we have to be available to meet him at his or her level to help them up in whatever they choose to focus on as their entrepreneurial journey. And one other thing I want to add to this, one of the curses of our entrepreneurial ecosystem is that most of the time, venture capitalists and major investors want to give money to white guys who went to Harvard, Stanford, or maybe Columbia or Yale. And they ask different and ridiculous questions of female entrepreneurs. And they look differently at Black and brown entrepreneurs. And I am sure that that metaphor extends to many countries in the world, including, I saw it upfront and personal, in Mexico. Based on where you came from, where you went to school, determined your viability as an entrepreneur, regardless of how good your idea was, how tenacious and talented you were. And we have to all focus on better balancing this, and more important, the support of the ecosystem and the members of it, and make sure that we are as generous with that as we can be. It's not charity, it's an investment in the future of our hometown or our ecosystem or our industry. We have to focus on that in every ecosystem we build.
I couldn't agree more. And I guess, Jeff, you that have been going so often to places like Africa and Asia, what's your take on this? Because as Roberto was saying before, these global inefficiencies of the market and these asymmetry that we see is, I think, a very inefficient way of building the startups. What would we do about that? Is it about connecting countries? Is it about meeting investors from one place with founders from another one?
It's about all of the above. It is about creating the opportunities and giving the exposure to those underrepresented founders. As an example, right now, I'm both executive producing and starring in a new television show that's about to come out called Going Public. It's like Shark Tank, except we're letting any viewer anywhere in the world invest in the companies, not the sharks. But equally importantly, we're taking public, it's called Going Public because we'll be airing the IPOs live from the NASDAQ. Let's see, the first company we picked is 2 minority females. The second one's 2 minority males. We're focusing on women, underrepresented founders. We've got Asian, Latina founders, Black founders. I guess the reason I'm telling you that is we're trying to do our part. Everybody needs to do their part to create opportunities for founders who are equally as intelligent, their ideas equally as good, if not better. But statistically and historically, they don't get the same level of opportunities. So the reason that we're doing things like this new show is, like I said, anybody anywhere in the world, you're welcome to invest. We'll teach you how to invest. And if you've got a great company, we'll feature your company. So I think my challenge to everybody is, everybody talks. As a matter of fact, all the sayings I believe are behind me. It said, your ideas are welcome here, but execution is worship. Everybody talks about equality, diversity, inclusion, but what are you actually doing? So we're trying to do our part, and I'm challenging everybody to do the same. Do something. We understand that you can't by yourself level the playing field for underrepresented founders. Then pick one. Go find one. Go find two. Go find somebody. I guess I'll end with that. One of my all-time favorite Mother Teresa quotes. She said, hey, if you can't feed 100 people, feed one. And I think if everybody takes that attitude into supporting one underrepresented founder, I think we can make a lot of progress quick. So I think it is time to take action as a community to bring more founders to the front than historically have had the opportunity.
Thank you, Jeff. Peter, you are in one of the most exciting industries and sectors in the world, which is basically any new gadget technology or anything that comes into the market. We now have access to the most exciting time in history. We have access to amazing technologies. We think that AI is some sci-fi movie kind of thing, even though we have the thing inside our phones and we use it every day. How can any kind of entrepreneur that is not studying a PhD in MIT or Stanford get the mindset of understanding that the technology is out there and they can reach out almost to any online store and get it?
So when I teach at Singularity University, I'm focusing on entrepreneurs on 4 mindsets. I think if you look at what made every major leader and entrepreneur successful on the planet, I don't think it was their technology. I don't think it was their money. I think it was their mindset, the way they saw the world. And if you took away all of their money, all of their tech, but you kept their mindset, they would regain their success. And so I'm constantly thinking about, how do you shape an entrepreneur's mindset? You know, our brains, 100 billion neurons, 100 trillion synaptic connections. Our brains are giant neural nets. And our neural net is shaped by the information we bring into our eyes, our ears, who we hang out with, the conversations we have, what we watch on television. All of those things shape the way you think. And so most of us actually don't take the time to shape our thinking. Think about, principally 5 mindsets: an abundance mindset. And it's the notion that every year there is more and more opportunity. It just is. There's more energy available, more capital, more access to food, water, healthcare, education. We might have small dips, but trajectory-wise, it's massive. We're dematerializing, demonetizing, and democratizing all of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We are, an exponential mindset that technology is moving not faster, but it's accelerating. And those technologies are what you need to understand. And there are interfaces, there are platforms, there are software as a service, AI as a service, or you can find your partner who is a coding expert if you know the problem space. And then a moonshot mindset that you can go 10 times bigger where the old world is going 10% bigger. And then finally, a purpose-driven mindset that you need to have purpose. Otherwise, doing anything big and bold in the world is hard, and you're going to give up if you don't have that emotional energy driving you, right? That's what we do at the X Prize. We've launched $300 million in prizes for entrepreneurs. I don't care where they went to school, what they've ever done. If they solve the problem, they win and the world wins. Anyway, it is an amazing time to be an entrepreneur.
Thank you, Peter. Roberto, you're a global connector. I mean, I've never met anyone with such an impressive contact book. I mean, you're restless. And I guess for me, one of the biggest challenges of the global ecosystem is that we talk a lot about collaboration. And for me, there's a lot of noise in the environment about people collaborating. But truth is that whenever it comes down to really doing the stuff together and sharing the results, is not as simple as it sounds. So how can we start doing that kind of collaboration?
So people are different, right? So we have a big empathy gap in the globe, understanding different realities, different countries, different mindsets. I think that's something that we should all do to do what you just mentioned, Peter. But let me share 3 quick ideas with you, and I'll get started with one example, and Peter will know about that. So a company called OneSkin, that's a good example. A company that was born, the entrepreneur is originally from Brazil. She has a deep tech background. She moved to the US. What's the point here? There's value that is not being created in the globe because there are some missing global connections. We can unleash value creation, connecting entrepreneurs with different ecosystems around the globe. And for sure, we can do that across nations. And as we're saying we're seeing different ecosystems maturing around the globe. We have Kaspi in Kazakhstan. I've been working in Kazakhstan. The second thing is that we surely need to uplift local innovation existence. One final idea here, Peter, because I think it connects to what you had mentioned before about connecting how to do that, is the need to connect entrepreneurs with policy. The more innovative, complex, deep tech stuff, the more you need to interact with institutions, regulation, or you will be bounded by that. So it's part of an entrepreneurial journey to shape institutions in some way. And we need to close that gap. There's a problem. Cockroaches don't have a reputation or have bad reputations. So entrepreneurs lack social capital, and they usually don't have voice in policy. So we need to be sure that we are creating the spaces for that.
Thank you, Roberto. Salim, what's your take on comments of the others? I mean, you created a community of more than 8,000 experts in innovation and technology. How can you build such a thing and then have everyone pitching in doing stuff like the foresights you're working on right now with the idea of this amazing purpose of transforming stuff. Does everything come from the MTP? What's your view?
Yeah, if you're going to take on a challenge, and let's face it, being an entrepreneur is a path to crazy. You have to be crazy before you begin, and it'll make you crazy along the way, and then you're crazy at the back end. There's also the dark side of the mental stress that comes with entrepreneurs who are very lonely. It's hard to talk to your shareholders, etc. You really need a support system, and that's partly the work that Jeff and Bob and all of us are trying to do over the years. The policy side that Roberto mentions is absolutely critical, because one of the reasons I think it's the U.S. has been so successful is that it's relatively easy if you fail a company for you to shut the company down. I built a subsidiary for one of my companies in India, which is where I'm from originally. And when the company parentship failed, it took me 7 years to shut down the subsidiary. It's 7 years. Am I likely to do another one there? No, not a hope in hell, because the shutting down costs are too high. Whereas if you make it easy for people to wind down, and this is the biggest secret that you could give to governments, is make it easy for people to fail. In most parts of the world, if you build a business and you fail, you're a failure. The reason Silicon Valley is successful is that if you build a business and you fail, we call it experience. Right. And that's a very different model for how to think about the world. And Peter talks about mindsets. If governments could have that mindset, then it would unleash an unbelievable amount of innovation, creativity into their local ecosystems. The good news is that with the rise of crypto and all of the other dynamics going on, it's now easier than ever for anybody to go build a virtual environment. I've been playing around with NFTs, and it's just unbelievable to see the global participation of kids around the world being part of this new kind of movement in a way that they don't have to ask for permission for anything of anybody. They just need a mobile phone and internet access, and that's coming to everybody. So that gives me enormous optimism for the world. Also, per the exponential technology side, we now have a dozen technologies that are growing exponentially. Drones are doubling every 9 months in their capability. So if you layer a solution on that, the solution doubles with the underlying technology. And you connect the gumption with the technology, with the access to and the low cost of technology, pretty much anything's possible.
Thank you for that. And by the way, just hearing you now, I had a conversation a few years back with Ryan Babino, the guy who wrote Fail Fast, Fail Often. Amazing guy. And because of the conversation, we created an award called Kintsugi, and it was about celebration of failure, because we've seen that as a big challenge, especially in countries that do not have that kind of push for creating stuff new and being an entrepreneur. And what's your take on failure culture and pivoting and that kind of stuff?
This is for everybody in all of the countries in the world. You should start an awards ceremony where every year you pick 3 entrepreneurs that took the biggest risks and failed, and put them on TV, have them shake the president or prime minister's hand and recognize that. And it'll change the cultural narrative towards failure, because then you'll reward the attempt, the taking of risk, and the gumption that it took to step out and do something crazy. Because in most of the world, if you stand up and say you want to change the world, the rest of society pulls you back down. It takes an extraordinary amount of courage, and we should reward that courage.
Hey, Salim?
Yeah.
Not only totally agree, but an interesting experience that I was giving a talk in Asia, thousands of people, and people kept raising their hands saying, Jeff, that's fine to be an entrepreneur in other parts of the world, but you can't do it here because of the Asian shame on failing. And I said, you know why it's shameful to fail where you're part of the world? And they said, why? And I said, because you keep saying that. You want to know how to fix this problem? Stop saying that. And after, I just want to say, after I left, this group of young Asians came to my hotel at midnight, and they said, we just want you to know that youth around the world, now that we're all connected online and have spoken to each other, we're not buying that crap anymore. We do not believe there's a shame in failure. We watch people in other cultures start businesses, fail, recover, and build a better one. So there is good news out there. Yeah. The generation of people who keep saying that failure is shameful are literally ending their reign, and the young people don't believe it. To your point, we've got to all stand up and keep repeating that. Failure means trying, and trying is the only way we're ever going to have progress.
And failure brings learning, which is why I always call it, it's not a failure if you fail up. If you, okay, well, that didn't work, let me try this. That's what good entrepreneurs do, and we have to applaud that.
Sometimes you need to, improve your sales pitch, have more, attributes for your own brand and your local brand, and to become a relevant actor in the global ecosystem. So I love the failure, anecdotes, because definitely we need to failure up, as Bob was saying, every time. Everybody learn from it.
If I may add something
Adriana.
very quick here,
Yep.
Peter, I want to include a different twist here. I think there are two different things when we talk about failure. One is values and beliefs, what we call culture, right? And how the perception, we need to change, we need to shift that, and very much support what Salim has said and that idea. The other thing, it's about the material, concrete reality of life. What do I mean? There are places in the globe, if you fail, you have debt. You will not have access to credit. You will have legal liabilities. So in order to change the game, we need to improve those legal frameworks around the globe, right? For sure, there are things we could address through global connections, but we need to address both.
Peter, I was wondering, especially about all the stuff that you've been doing lately, if you have any recommendation for any entrepreneur that wants to pioneer into going into new technology, deep tech, something kind of like a lab, what would be the first thing you would suggest?
Make sure there's a business. And the challenge is a lot of entrepreneurs become enamored with the tech, the cool thing they've built, the cool scientific discovery they've had, and they end up trying to raise money to develop it further and ultimately to find a market. And it's backwards, right? There really must be a focus on what is the problem you're trying to solve? Become an expert in the problem. The technologies are constantly changing. If you're an expert in the problems don't change that fundamentally, right? So if you're an expert in the need for higher quality protein in India, or an expert in whatever it is, understanding that is critically important. I like to say the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. And then once you understand it, figure out what technology to go after. So, it's just fundamentally that basic. Fall in love with the problem. Be passionate about the problem, and everything else will follow.
Thank you, Peter.
I would add
And
one
Jeff-
thought to
Yes.
that, which is you, the entrepreneur, do not get to define either the problem or the solution. And the mantra of the lean startup method, you have to get out of the building and talk to the people with the problem, get their ideas on your solution's value or lack of value, and bring that learning forward to your team, to your investors, and let the customer be the co-developer of your solution. We have to make that a part of the culture of virtually every entrepreneur, not just the people working on the big unicorn problems.
Jeff, how does an entrepreneur from probably not like a very sophisticated urban area find a problem? How do they start?
The world around you can't stop presenting you problems. Everything you do is a problem. And what they get used to is just working around it, even though they find themselves complaining. One of the things I always tell, and I completely agree with Bob, the part of the reason I'm in a different country every week is because I'm never in my office. I don't learn much sitting in this chair. I learn it when I'm out in the world, engaged with people and observing problems. I'm going to give you a really fast example. Complaining about a problem. Stop and say, is this a big problem where I live? Just where you live. You don't have to solve, it doesn't have to be global tomorrow and on sale in the US. Is it a big problem where I live? If the answer is yes, then is when you go, as Peter said, to now you pick a technology. Is there a way to solve this problem better than it's being solved today? And then the third piece, I tell them to ask, so is it a real problem for a lot of people? Is there probably a way to do it better? And the third thing is there a value equation? And all that means is, will a lot of people in the world pay you more to fix this problem than it costs you to fix it? If people will pay you to fix it, you got a business. I'm going to give you a really quick example. I was in the streets in Cairo with some young entrepreneurs who were trying to go back to their little office. And if you've ever been with 20 million of your closest friends in cars in Cairo, it takes an hour to cross the street. And they were standing there complaining about it. And I said, if everybody here complains about it, why don't you just do something? So cut to the chase, they created an app that is used by 60 million people. This app was created in Egypt by some guys standing on the corner complaining about traffic. People-driven input product that everybody in the Middle East uses now. When you're standing in the middle of the problem and instead of complaining about it, stop and own it.
Thank you, Jeff. Peter, we're going to start closing comments. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. Anything you want to tell the audience or the panelists?
To the audience, again, I think entrepreneurship is the highest art form. It is a creative art form. It is an art form that makes the world a better place, and it's one of the most fulfilling art forms. So if that's something that's in your heart and your soul, go for it. Don't do anything just to make money. That's an empty road ahead. Do it because you feel like it brings value to your life and the value to the people that you love.
Thank you, Peter. It was lovely having you here. Jeff, can you share with us a few closing comments?
Do something somewhere. Someone around you where you live, there is a problem where you are. There is a person that would love to make it better if only they knew how. In the 190 countries we work in, the single most common phrase I hear is, I have an idea how to make things better. I just don't know where to start. So for every one of us on this call, be a mentor. You either need to be an entrepreneur or help one, but those are your only two choices. Find someone in your community that wants to make it better and help them make it better.
Thank you, Jeff. Adriana, any final comment?
I think everyone can play a pretty relevant role from the spot they are. I haven't been a successful entrepreneur, so I become an intrapreneur. So I'm so good at connecting people. I'm so good, to, taking advantage of the platform and the places that I have been, to ask questions, to, pursue people to do the things that they haven't thought. So take your talent to the next level. And I think, that will definitely impact the next generations eventually.
Thank you, Adriana.
I was just going to say, at grave personal risk, I would like to debate something Jeff Hoffman said. I don't think any of us as entrepreneurs have a choice between being a mentor and being an entrepreneur. We should all be able to find a few hours a week to pay it forward, to help the next generation, to teach some little bit of what we've learned to the next man or woman, to help them build something great on it as well.
Bob, you now have my vote for mayor. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
Me too.
Thank you, Bob. It was amazing to have you here. Roberto, would you like to share any closing comments?
Thank you, Pedro. The first is that entrepreneurs build a future again. So, and there's value that we're not creating because we're not doing what we could do to support entrepreneurs locally and globally. And finally, we need all hands on deck. You asked me how to do that. Be open, be empathetic. We need entrepreneurs, we need policy folks, we need corporate leaders, we need entrepreneurs, we need universities. We need to work across the spectrum to improve local and global realities. And thank you, Peter, for inviting me.
Salim, can you share a few closing comments, please?
Two quick stories. And I want to go back to what Bob said at the beginning about the tenacity that's needed. I think that's the fundamentally important characteristic. If I had to pick one, I remember when researching EXO, when Larry and Sergey went out to do investor presentations to raise money for Google, there was a dozen search engines. They did 352 investor presentations before they got funded. What if they'd stopped at 340? And so that tenacity is absolutely critical. And I'll go touch on the mindset comment that Peter had. And that mindset is really, really critical because everybody will tell you no. In fact, the task of being an entrepreneur means breaking down 500 no's around you, that you can't do this, that business model won't work, that pricing won't work, that market segment doesn't exist, that you can't raise the money, you're not credible enough, you're not good looking enough, you're not tall enough, you're not smart enough, whatever. I think that tenacity is the fundamental characteristic.
On that note, we gotta end. I appreciate you guys sharing 10 more minutes that we originally asked for. This was brilliant, probably one of the best conversations I've ever had in my life, so I'm happy it was recorded. I hope to see you again soon. And for everyone still watching and connected, we have a few more hours to go so that we can share with you what's going to happen within the OpenExo community and the Exo Builder ecosystem that we're launching as of today. So just stay tuned.